Okay, so this morning I'm very proud and happy to welcome our guest Daniel Stein, who is the founder of Special Strong. And the vision for Special Strong is to live an abundant life through fitness. I'm going to let Daniel explain that to you because he can probably do it much better than I. So, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this webinar today. And yes, so Special Strong, and really what we do is our big thing is we just want to create opportunities for the adaptive needs population to live a more abundant life. I grew up with a learning disability, and fitness transformed my life. And so I became very passionate, and I wanted to actually help other people with similar challenges just live a better quality of life. And so fitness was something that was a tool for me. And so in 2016, really my wife and I started Special Strong to really provide a different type of fitness, not just your traditional fitness training, but we call this adaptive fitness training. So it's really customized training for people that have mental, physical, cognitive challenges. So our biggest clientele is actually autism. And so, when you're working with somebody like autism, they might do some of the same exercises that we all do, but the way that you have to teach it, the way that you have to break it down, the way you have to communicate it is very different. That's why we call it adaptive fitness, because we have to adapt the fitness exercise to their needs. And so that's at a high level. That's what we do. We're really passionate just about impacting people, and really our vision is to impact over 1 million athletes that have mental, physical, cognitive challenges. And we also want to impact over 100,000 coaches. And we want to help them live a more abundant life. And that's our big theme, is abundant life. And it's actually, for us, we are a faith-based company. And for us, abundant life is based out of a verse in the Bible. It's John 10:10, which says that the enemy comes to steal, kill, destroy. And Jesus came that they may have life, and they may have it more abundantly. And so I remember reading that many years ago, and I just really felt like that was supposed to be the focus of the company. And I think I read that in 2014 in scripture, really felt like it was for the company. And then 2016, we started. And again, the whole focus, abundant life for people with autism, spina bifida, wheelchair users, traumatic brain injuries, you name it. We're going to find a way to help them live an abundant life.
Oh, that's great. I love that story.
Thank you.
That's a really unique, really nice story. So I think everyone knows that Matthew and I, we work with autism. We're language pathologists. We're very specialized in that area. And we know for a fact that exercise and fitness and just doing some organized movement can help so much. But tell me what you found in specifically like the gyms, and when you really only focus on, because we focus on communication, but if you're focusing on exercise and fitness, how have you seen that help folks with autism specifically?
Yeah, it's been incredible. So, one of the things that I've seen and has seen as a company with autism, just across the board, you obviously have the spectrum. So there is no just one type of autism and everybody's the same. But there are some pretty unique, there are some characteristics that are very similar across the spectrum. One of which would be low muscle tone. And we see low muscle tone almost on everyone that has autism. And the second thing that we see a lot are emotional regulation challenges. I would say those are probably the two biggest similarities that we see across autism. And you have other things like obesity. You have social issues. You have some that might have fine or gross motor skill challenges. But again, across the board, the main things are the low muscle tone and the emotional challenges. So I really want to focus on those two things, because as a company, we have impacted over 10,000 athletes, many of which have autism. And it's been really interesting. We've seen some really, really incredible things. And I'd love to just share a story about one particular young man. I started working with him back in 2017. And he met us at a resource fair, and they signed up for our services back in 2017. And when I started working with them, he had a lot of maladaptive behaviors. And so he was aggressive. He typically didn't hurt anybody else, but he would hurt himself. And those are called SIBs, self injury behaviors is I believe is what that stands for. And so he would injure himself. He would attack himself, and then he would also attack not other people, but he would attack property. So he would hit the wall. He would destroy doors and he's a big boy. He's over 6 feet tall. So he would put holes in the wall, holes in the doors. And so I started working with him. And I had some challenges in the gym with him where he would have severe meltdowns, and I'd have to take him into a quiet room. I'd have to de-escalate him. As a company, we don't do any kind of restraining, for legal reasons. But there were times when I had to get his mom to physically restrain him because he was just so all over the place and going, just having a meltdown. And so that was in 2000, and I started with him in 2017. And I still work with him to this day. So he's been with me now for over 7 years. And it's really neat. Last year, it was really neat. His parents, I'm very close to his family, and his parents invited me out to their house one day for a celebration. And so we all went in the backyard. There are probably about 10 people there. And, I was there, and his family was there. And then a lot of people who are a part of, his name is Robert, a lot of people who are a part of Robert's life, like caregivers, therapists, they were also there. And so they created, we're in a city area. So they created this little fire pit in the backyard, and it was late at night. And they got, the marshmallow sticks, whatever you call those things. They got those metal marshmallow sticks, and they attached a boxing glove to the marshmallow stick. And these boxing gloves were the boxing gloves that Robert used to put on when he would have meltdowns, because they didn't know what else to do. They couldn't stop him. He was getting bigger. I mean, and as he got older, he was 250 pounds. Parents couldn't stop the meltdowns. So they would literally just give him boxing gloves and put him in the garage. They give him a helmet and boxing gloves, and he'd hit his head against the wall with the helmet, and then he'd take the boxing gloves, and then he would just hit whatever. I think they might have had a boxing bag in there, but he was hitting everything. So when we celebrated outside, it had been over a year since he had really any meltdown like that. And so we actually put the boxing gloves in the fire and completely burned them. And so Robert did that, and so he burned 2 of them, because there's a pair. And that's just a really neat story of how, somebody who had severe meltdowns, that in Robert's case, because he was so strong, I mean, there's no telling like just the kind of brain cell damage he was doing when he was hitting his head against the wall. And those are all completely gone now. Now, this was not overnight. I trained him for 7 years, and we did have improvements over the years. But it really took, in Robert's case, it took about 5 or 6 years to get what I would consider freedom in the area of meltdowns. And again, we had a lot of small victories. In the beginning, the meltdowns were less and less and less, and there was more emotional regulations, but it wasn't an overnight fix at all. And that's the one thing about exercise programs. People want quick fixes, but exercise is not a quick fix. If you're in it for a quick fix, just don't even waste your time. It is all about the long haul. And when it comes to changing the brain, which is what happened with Robert through exercise, changing the brain and building new neural pathways, the biggest way that's accomplished is through repetition. Things have to be done hundreds and thousands and 10,000s of times over and over and over until strong neural pathways are created in the brain. And then you have someone like Robert who's done something 1,000 times or 5,000 times, and all of a sudden the emotional challenges are just completely gone. So that's just one example of how, exercise helped someone with autism just really control their emotional challenges. And it's what's neat about that, by the way, is, the exercise program started with Robert, and Robert lost a bunch of weight. But as a family, they actually all started exercising. And as a family, the Heist family lost over 100 pounds as of this year collectively. So it's really neat when you see that kind of not just transformation from the person with autism, but the whole family, because we all know the the person with autism, they've got their own challenges, but what about mom and dad? I mean, they're stressed out. They've got a lot going on. And what if it started with Robert with autism and it led to the whole family being transformed? And that's really our heart as a company, is we don't want to just impact the person that has autism or is in a wheelchair. We want to impact, if there's a family involved, we want to impact the whole family. Because really when it comes to creating a lifestyle, it's really hard to create a lifestyle when you have, a mom, a dad, and someone with autism, and you have someone here with the autism and they're eating healthy and they're working out, and then you have mom and dad and they're not doing any of it. It's really hard to create a long-term lifestyle when you don't have the whole family unit bought in. It's sort of like a company. Imagine you have a company and you have team members. Like, imagine trying to accomplish goals with a company where you have a couple of people who are really motivated and they're following the system, but then you've got these other team members over here and they're kind of doing their own thing. Not everybody's rowing in the same direction. You're going to have a lot of trouble as a company if you have team members who aren't rowing in the same direction. And that's really the key when it comes to success with fitness programs and families. Everybody has to be rowing in the same direction. It can't just be about Roberts. It has to be about the whole family.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And in fact, that's exercise and communication development are very similar in that way, which you'd think they're not necessarily related, but they are. Is that, like you said, if only one person is changing their habits, one person's eating right and the other people are not, with the likelihood of it taking hold and being a long-term change is less, as opposed, and it's very similar to communication. Like, if you just want someone to say something a different way, and then the rest of the family doesn't necessarily respond or differently if you pronounce a word one way versus another, or they have to be able to asking certain types of questions. So there has to be a whole system of change for communication to take hold, very similar to how exercise functions. And I do think there's I really love that story too, because it does highlight, like we were talking about, that large change it only happens through gradual steps over time. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes we can get confused with the people being similar to electronic devices, where we're like, okay, we want something to be different. Let's just upload a software change, and then tomorrow everything's better. I mean, with human beings, there has to be a gradual, consistent change that you adapt, and then you have to turn it into habits, and then that has to be internalized, and then you're going to see the large change months later, or in some cases years later. But the most important thing is making sure people understand this, because if you're just you're just schlepping away, starting a new exercise or starting a new habit, you have to realize that maybe today you won't see a change because you started yesterday. Right. You got to realize that even though you're in the midst of it, that just doing the work will pay off over time. Again, very similar to communication development. Exercise and communication development are very similar in that way, because it involves building new neural pathways and establishing different habits and routines.
Yeah, that's really good, Matthew. And this is studied, but when it comes to forming new habits, you look at weight loss or starting an exercise program. Really, one of the top factors, potentially, I believe that it's actually the number one factor that will determine if someone is successful in starting an exercise program or a weight loss program, is accountability. And so it goes back to why it's so important to do it. As a family, number one, you've got the accountability now as a family, where everybody's keeping each other accountable to do the same thing. And maybe somebody out there, maybe they don't have a family. That's okay. Get somebody else in your life, a friend or an extended family member, and join up with them, link up with them, and have somebody else keep you accountable, because that really is the key to the longevity. And again, we've worked with over 10,000 athletes now, and without a question, when there's more accountability, it really equates to something very different.
Yeah, were you want to say something, Lois?
Yeah.
I jumped in right what you're going to say. I also like this concept of there's like this kind of subtle form of behaviorism with this too, with the idea of functionally equivalent replacement behaviors. Like that
Yes.
if you're gonna start a new habit, is the new habit does it serve the same function as the old one? And then oftentimes does it take less energy or the same energy for a similar or exact outcome? And that can be one of the other tricks of starting something new. And then if you're trying to do a more healthy habit, how can that new habit, let's say, in the client's case you're talking about, maybe instead of engaging in self-injurious behaviors, you just give them some weights, or how about we do 5 push-ups when we're feeling, dysregulated, and then eventually that becomes reinforcing, and instead of the old habit. And then also, if it takes the same amount of energy, to do some push-ups in a lot of ways as it does to engage in head banging or other kind of SIBs. Over time, and obviously the push-ups or grabbing some weights or jump roping, those are always going to be superior, but it has to be readily available, and then it has to take about the same amount of energy or less energy, and then have the same outcomes.
It's good.
So Daniel, what are some if a parent is listening to this and say, wow, I can see the benefits, how can I get started? Like, how right now, what are some home exercises that someone could do with their child or even adult, get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the neat thing about our company, Special Strong, we have a lot of great resources. So as a company, we do have, 12 locations across the United States. And so, for somebody who's starting a new exercise program, I always recommend hire an expert to at least help you get you started on your journey. So, we are really the leading experts in the industry. And even if you're not near one of our local areas, another really good option is we do have an app. It's called Adaptive Fit. You can go to adaptivefit.com or adaptivefitness.com. Both of those are going to go to the same place, but it's a free app and it's full of resources. So, if a parent is looking to start an exercise program, they can literally get this free app, and they will have all sorts of different adaptive exercises. And we even have live group classes. So if they wanted to be more part of the community and do group classes virtually with other people, that's an option. And, a lot of people hear about virtual training and they're a little skeptical, but we've done it now for 4 years, virtual training, literally all over the world. We even have a client in China who we're training virtually, which is really neat. And the model has worked really, really well. And it's one of the best ways for someone to get started is just get that app and start learning some of the exercises in that app. And all the exercises that you're going to need to do are going to be in that app. And so there's no, in terms of buying equipment, in many cases, if you are going to buy equipment, it's things that you can buy on Amazon for under $100. And so it's really the best place to start, because there are some exercises that we do in the gym with some of our clients that I would say are some of our staple exercises. They're the most impactful exercises. And so I'll share a couple of those. So one is just the medicine ball slam. And you're literally just taking a medicine ball from above your head and you're slamming it down. And it's really as simple as that. But there's actually a lot that's going on in there. You're using the hips, you're using the glutes, you're using your upper body, using your core. It's really a full body exercise. But what's neat about it is it's actually considered what's called a top to bottom exercise, which is actually a brain movement. And there's something that happens in the brain whenever you cross over from the top to the bottom. And it's actually shown that when you make that cross from top to bottom, it's shown to be very grounding, very helpful for emotional regulation. So we like to use it with all of our athletes. Not only is it just a great, just overall way to warm up the body before you start like lifting weights, but it's a great, just full body workout that's going to help with emotional regulation. And literally you can go to Amazon and just type in, I prefer the medicine balls that are filled with sand. They're actually called sand bells. different than a medicine ball. Medicine ball is going to be circular with sand. A sand bell is going to be more flat with sand. And I actually prefer the sand bells over the medicine balls. But you can go on Amazon, you can get different weights, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, which is nice because maybe they start with 5 pounds and you work them up to 10, 15, 20. And they're cheap. I mean, it's so you could do that if you just did that once a day, a couple sets of 15, just keep it really simple. Maybe, I love what Matthew said about the habits. If maybe you brush your teeth in the morning or night, I mean, how easy would it be to brush your teeth and then maybe do 10 slams? I mean, it's literally a 30-second task. And you're just pairing it with something else that you already do, which is such a great way to start a new habit. So it's actually from a book. Great book, Atomic Habits, that talks about that in there. Hopefully, I'm sure you both read it. Matthew, I'm pretty sure Matthew's read it because what he's talking about is definitely in that book. If he hasn't read it, he knows it. But it is a principle of creating a habit. It's the replacement principle. And it works. I mean, and that's really what exercise is about, is creating new habits. And so you've got the question of what exercises do I do? That's an easy question to answer. The more challenging thing is, how do we make this a habit? Mm-hmm. So I hear Daniel talk, and it's not just an idea. I actually take action and make it a part of my lifestyle. Because if that doesn't happen, it's pointless. Like, listening to this information will do absolutely nothing for you if it doesn't turn into a habit. If you do a slam 10 times for a week and then you stop, it's not going to do anything for you. I mean, maybe it'll help a little bit, but you'll regress and you'll be back to where you were the next week. Yeah. So it's really the key principle with exercise is forming habits, getting that accountability. That's why I love the technology, the app that we have, is because you're actually going to be in the app with other people who have the same challenges or similar, and you can chat with them in the community board, but guess what? It's all accountability. And what's neat about the app is every time you do an exercise, it actually takes that exercise and it posts it automatically in the group. And it says, Jimmy just did his medicine ball slams for today. So now everybody else is reading that and they're like, oh, I didn't do anything today, but Jimmy did his, right? So it's all intentional. Like, we want to gamify this process to get people motivated and make it a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm going to add to that, being working in the school districts and just working with young kids. If you can get them to do an exercise like that, the slam or whatever the exercise is, right before a cognitive task, you are going to have so much better results on that cognitive task, whatever it is. It really helps organize the brain, settle it down. Like you say, crossing from up to down and sometimes back to forth.
Yes.
There does something in there. There is science to it, and it helps with school and learning, and ultimately for us, communication. So they're not separate. Pair them together. It's so just good. Kind of a gestalt overall. This will help.
Yeah. Another kind of thing that I like to talk about, again, like we were saying, habits and communication, and exercise, they all kind of intertwine, is that I don't really care how busy you are. Everyone has 5 minutes a day. Like, every single person has 5 available minutes. So, and then you think, well, what do you do with those? Well, if you were to do something just for the entirety of 5 minutes, 7 days a week, because everyone has 5 minutes, 7 days a week, that ends up being, at the end of the week, that's 35 minutes. You do that. If you're repeating that for 4 weeks out of the month, that's 240 minutes of exercise. So that's 2 hours and 20 minutes that you've exercised in a month by just committing 5 minutes that you already have to doing some new habit or movement or whatever it is. And then when you mix it with the accountability piece, Jimmy just did his 5 minutes. I mean, you can always find that 5 minutes. I mean, think about how much time people spend scrolling and just doing nothing for 5 minutes. Instead of doing that, or while you're doing that, just get on a bike and scroll on a bike for 5 minutes or something. So I think a lot of these things, I feel that with the families we work with, when you frame it in a way that's achievable, as opposed to if you tell someone, I need you to exercise for 220 minutes this month, they might not sign up for that, as opposed to, I need you to spend 5 minutes a day, which you already have, doing these new habits. And it's a lot more approachable.
That's really good.
So Daniel, where can we find you?
Yeah, the best place is just our website, specialstrong.com. It's got everything on there. You can access the app through that. There's franchise opportunities if somebody wants to start their own Special Strong. And we even have a certification program. So if somebody wanted to get certified to learn how to do adaptive fitness training, which is great for parents to do with their own children, that's also on specialstrong.com. So that would be the best way to get us is specialstrong.com.
Okay, great. Well, it was a pleasure having you this morning. I put the link to the specialstrong.com, and I do believe Abundant Life on the chat. So go check out Daniel, get the app. It's free. I got it. I haven't joined a community yet because I gotta make that habit. If you're having trouble making habits, Atomic Habits is an excellent book. It will help to break some bad ones, create good ones. So it was such a pleasure having you, Daniel. And I do want to encourage everybody to take the fitness part seriously for multiple purposes, just for the default well-being of life for your family, not just one person, your whole family.
It's good. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes.
Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, we'll have you again. This is excellent. Love it.
Absolutely.
And look forward to Daniel is going to, we're going to have an article about fitness and strength in our next November edition of Autism Digest. So
love it. Can't wait.
there. Okay. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you.